Welcome to the Roost News, the place for all things volunteer. I'm Whitt Phillips, team member for the Roost News. Let's welcome our guests, Angela Vance, Senior Associate State Director for Advocacy, AARP West Virginia State Office, volunteer Roger Calhoun, current AARP State President for West Virginia, and volunteer Jane Marks, former AARP State President for West Virginia. They will share information on their advocacy work by using two different groups. One, the Red Coats, and the other is the Red Shirt Alert Team. Before we hear the story of the Red Coats and the Red Shirt Alert Team, please share a little information about you. Let's start with Angela. How long have you worked for AARP and what does your role cover?
Hi, Whit. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to discussing what we do in West Virginia. I'm the Senior Associate State Director for Advocacy here in the great state of West Virginia. I've been with AARP for a little over 20 years now. And some time ago, I started my career in aging. I worked for this lovely woman. Her name is Jane Marks, and she's the former executive director of the Alzheimer's Association. And so Jane and I have come full circle. After retirement, she joined the AARP team, and we've enjoyed having her on our volunteer team. My role at AARP is to advance local, state, and federal advocacy on behalf of the enterprise. So in West Virginia, we work to support family caregivers, to fight fraud, waste, and abuse, and protect people from financial exploitation. We work to ensure that everybody has access to high-speed internet. And we work on livability issues, housing, transportation, ensuring that all West Virginians can stay in their homes and their communities and hopefully get to where they need to be when they need to be there. And so that's a little bit about me. I look forward to talking about our core volunteer team and our Red Shirt Alert team coming up and how we do our work to be successful in the state of West Virginia.
Thanks, Angela. Now we will hear from our two volunteers, Roger and Jane. Roger, you now serve as the West Virginia State President, or AARP State President. How long have you been in this volunteer role? And before you became the state president, were you involved in any other volunteer positions?
Yeah, thanks, Whit. I have been doing this role for about 7 months and still learning. There's a lot that I need to learn. So before this position, I was in the Capital Advocacy team, what you're calling the Red Coats. Did that for about 6 years. I kind of like to tell folks that I retired from the federal government on the first Friday in January and started participating in the AARP training to start in the legislative session the following Monday. So I took a 2-day retirement and started with AARP. Didn't want to get bored, and AARP took care of that. I am not bored. So AARP also helped get me on the governor's Broadband Enhancement Council here in West Virginia. And that's been very interesting since West Virginia was awarded $1.2 billion with a B dollars to improve its high-speed internet situation. So AARP's been really good at keeping me engaged and looking forward to, more challenges.
Nice. Thanks, Roger. Jane, you previously served in the volunteer role as state president. Were you involved in any other volunteer positions before your role as state president?
I was. As Angela said, she and I have a long history. And when I retired from the Alzheimer's Association, of course, AARP did what they do, and they just grabbed me. And so some of the things that I have done with AARP obviously involved the focus on family caregiving because that was my career background. So I have worked on a lot of projects with AARP West Virginia in that genre and have done some speaking on caregiving issues. I've done a little bit of fraud work and, things like home fit. but I also am part of what we're calling our Capital Advocacy Team, or the Redcoats. I also now am very privileged to serve on the National Caregiving Advisory Council for AARP.
Nice. Thanks, Jane. Now let's find out more about the Redcoats and the Red Shirts Alert Team initiatives at the West Virginia State Capitol. We know that working at the state capitol in the area of advocacy can be time consuming and a lot of conversations with legislators. Why did you all decide to call the team Redcoats? And did this refer to something specific or as to remember, easy to remember? Jane?
Well, actually, we did not name ourselves the Redcoats. Obviously, if we were going to be at the legislature almost every day during the session, we wanted to be readily identified. So, of course, we all wear red in some form or fashion. Many of our male volunteers have purchased red sport coats, and we women have a variety of, we've got our AARP scarves, we've got sweaters and jackets and blouses and all that. But it was the legislators that started identifying us, because we always, arrive in a group and we're sitting in committee meetings or in legislative sessions themselves, or even meeting with legislators. We always show up in red. So they started calling us the Redcoats, and it became a joke. Here come the Redcoats. Well, another funny instance, a couple of years ago, one of the younger legislators said, if you all weren't so nice, I'd call you a gang, because you always move in a pack. So, of course, now sometimes we call ourselves the Red Gang, but we're primarily known as the Redcoats. But they named us. We didn't name ourselves. We just took it on after they did it.
Great, great. Some state offices will have volunteers to visit the legislative sessions periodically during the time that the legislators are in session. However, you all do more than just periodic visits. Please share how often you meet and why you all feel it's important to do more than just periodic visits by using the Red Coats team. Roger?
Yeah, well, we've found that's really important, if not even critical, to be there every day, to have some volunteers there every day, because in our 60-day session, things are fluid. And we need to be there to work with that fluidness. So once a bill is up, once we get far enough to have a bill, we've seen, and I have an example with the accessory dwelling unit. We've seen in a committee that that got misinterpreted and almost didn't make it out of committee. So we knew from being there, we were there. We saw it happen. We saw the very lines that were misinterpreted. We had a chance to get together, figure out which of the legislators we needed to talk to, who would be powerful enough that they could talk to the other legislators and straighten this out. We had to be there. That wouldn't have happened if we weren't there. And I think the other thing is we develop a rapport with a lot of the legislators. They like having AARP as a resource. Once they get to know us in person, they've met us a couple of times. We've maybe had lunch with them, when we have a sponsor our lunches. So they know us. They start to trust us. Many of the legislators will come to us for information, or maybe they'll give us information that's not quite yet public. And it's very helpful as we pursue our interests to know what some of the legislators are thinking. So that rapport and that relationship that we develop is key. And you have to remember, we're not, may not be the constituent of the person we're trying to influence. We're not in their district. We're walking in sometimes to a stranger's office and asking for something. So I think it's a daily mission of being there, being able to pivot, immediately, being able to know, and Angela does this for us very well, when we need more help from our national office, that they need to interpret, something or give us an example of something. And it happens very quickly. The legislators appreciate that we can pivot, that we can provide information, within the same day, because we're there, we're able to make the calls, we're able to see the people. So it makes for a really strong effort with the legislators. And then I want to mention the camaraderie that we develop within the Red Coat team. If you're there, every day with some of the same people, you're walking those marble floors, you're running from wing to wing. It's, we're having that wonderful meals down at the Capitol cafeteria. Can't get out of the Capitol. You're there. We
Gotta
really
eat.
develop a pretty good bond among the volunteers. So that's something important too. Is we are on a mission. It's sometimes a tough mission, requires physical and mental activities, and we're helping each other out. So it's really a good effort.
Excellent, excellent. The second group is the Red Shirts Alert Team. How does this team differ from the Red Coats? Roger.
Oh, okay. So we did name the Red Shirt Team because we wanted to call it the Red Shirt Alert. So some people are very interested in helping out with legislative changes, but it takes a lot really to run from wing to wing on marble floors and to buttonhole people you don't know. And we have some volunteers that just aren't up for that level of effort, but they want to help. So there are many occasions where we need to show that AARP is in the building, that we need to, we've got a key bill coming up on the floor, or maybe there is a bill that's being passed and we want to show support and we just need the sea of red. We need volunteers just to come down and make a showing, be up in the balcony, be down, wherever they allow us, that we have a lot of support. So we did say, hey, if you're still interested in helping, and we don't want you down every day of the week or every week, but on Thursday, we've got this big bill signing. Can you come down and be in the audience on Thursday and wear something red? And so we just called it the Red Shirt Alert, and we've got many people that we can push the button, and I don't know if the red phone goes off in their office, but we ask and they respond. If there's any way they can, we can get a big showing of red. We can get that sea of red out there to show the legislators that we're really interested in a certain aspect of what they're doing. Positive influence.
Thanks, Roger, for sharing. You all make sure that all the points are covered for the West Virginia legislators to know what AARP goals are for the 50 plus population. Do you have a designated volunteer leader for the Red Coats and other volunteer leaders for the Red Shirts Alert Team? And do these two groups collaborate on issues? Angela.
Thanks so much. That Roger and Jane have shared how we have grown and evolved over the years. And it's taken some time and some test and learn and to see what works the best. Early in my career at AARP, we would have an annual lobby day and we would bring everybody in and just have the one day. And so then over time, we realized that quality over quantity at the Capitol really makes the difference. So one of the things that I think brings me the most pleasure about working for AARP is to empower citizens to work directly with legislators to benefit the 50 plus population in our state. And we do that with the Capitol Advocacy team. We meet monthly, and then during the legislative session, we meet weekly on Mondays to kind of tentatively plan our week. A state legislative session is short. I'm sure it's very similar across the country, and things move very quickly and they change very quickly. So we do our best to plan for the week. Volunteers come in, they pick a day that works best for them, and we update them daily during the legislative session. And so it depends on the day and who's at the Capitol, but many volunteers take on a leadership role. Many volunteers have been on the team we have one volunteer who's been on the team almost as long as I've had the team. And every year I hold my breath to see if he's going to come back and be with us. And so far, so good. But he has developed his own relationships over time. And people, people run down the hall to make sure they say hello to him and know he was there. So has evolved over the years. Different volunteers take on different leadership roles. We have had the benefit of having really great volunteers in the state of West Virginia who are equipped and able to provide testimony in committees, which, I think is a huge deal. And it takes a lot of preparation and dedication and skill to be able to do that. So that's another leadership role that volunteers take on. And, we kind of operate in the buddy system. And I always think that it's smart for a variety of reasons to never meet with a legislator by yourself unless you really have to. I think that you need somebody to monitor the conversation. We really like to have 3 people in the meeting if possible. One person to deliver the message, one person to take notes, and one person to kind of keep us on track time-wise, and to make sure that we always make the ask, that we don't walk out and get distracted without telling the person why we're there, what we want, and what the next steps are, because that's what we're there to do. We're there to convince them to do something, to pass something, to write something. And so it's important to have the appropriate folks in the room and have a plan before you go into the meeting. I'm so glad that Roger mentioned the camaraderie of the team. It's a group of random people from across the state who may not have ever met if it wasn't for AARP. And we go to the Capitol and we have a shared purpose, an intense shared purpose for 60 days that brings us together. And there's a lot of downtime at the Capitol. Everything happens in 5 minutes and you never know when those 5 minutes are going to be. So there's a lot of sitting around and there's a lot of talking and there's a lot of catching up and sharing stories. And we've gotten to all be very good friends and close with one another. We check in on each other. We were just at the Capitol this week to catch up on some things, and it was nice to see everybody and to kind of get back into the groove of things. And so, they're all volunteer leaders. The whole Capitol Advocacy team has the ability to serve in a leadership role. And so it depends on the day, it depends on the legislator, it depends on the topic. Some people have more experience with topics than other people do. Jane has a long history working on behalf of family caregivers. Roger serves on the Broadband Council. Another one of our volunteers is a retired social worker. We just got a new volunteer who retired from state government and was up at the Capitol for many years and has lots of relationships still intact and really understands the process, which is it's a whole animal on its own, just the process of the legislative session. And so, yes, we work hard to train our volunteers to make sure that they have the information and the resources that they need to represent the association on their own. And many of them do independently. But we meet, we talk, we come to the right conclusion on how to handle each situation and what person should do it, and then we move forward. And of course, the more time you spend with people and the more you get to know people, the more that becomes second nature for, who's going to do what quickly. And you develop, kind of a shorthand with each other. And so I feel very fortunate that we have such a great team and that the team has mostly stayed intact. We have a lot of people with a lot of experience on the team. We get new people every year, and we're always grateful to have new people join the team because I don't have to tell you, we work for AARP and people age out sometimes and don't maintain maybe the mobility that they once had to be able to navigate the Capitol because it is sometimes difficult. Or they can't travel like they used to. So we've also offered people to be remote. So they'll Zoom into the meetings, they'll make calls on our behalf. And so, we have a couple volunteers that even though they're not in the building, their senator, their delegate. They know who they are. They know that they work for AARP. They know they're active in their community back home. And, we have them follow up after we have a meeting just to let the legislature know that we have citizens in their district that are paying attention and that are focused on our issues as well.
Wow. Collaboration is important, and it's great to hear that volunteers are committed to and involved in the advocacy. I also read that AARP West Virginia State Office has received national recognition for advocacy initiatives. Please share about that recognition and the initiatives that played a role in your receiving this national recognition. Jane?
Yes, we're always thrilled when a piece of legislation that we've worked hard on crosses the finish line, but it's also nice when you get some sort of an award for all that hard work. This was one of our most challenging battles. In 2024, we won the PR Daily Award for our initiatives around eliminating the tax on Social Security here in West Virginia. This is an award presented by Reagan Communications, and it's for outstanding work in PR and communication. So, as you might imagine, we always have a list of initiatives, potential pieces of legislation that we want to work on in any given year. And eliminating the tax on Social Security was on our wish list, but not necessarily on our we know we can get this done soon list. And so our legislature, while it meets for 60 days, January, February, and early March, they have what they call interim meetings, which are 2 and 3 day meetings throughout the year. And in the fall of 2023, we were presenting before a joint committee during one of these interims. And as Angela Vance had the microphone in her hand anyway, and she had finished talking about the particular topic that we were presenting on, she mentioned some of our other possible initiatives, and she kind of threw in the possibility of eliminating the tax on Social Security. Then in another meeting, we sort of threw out this idea to our Senate president, and he said, absolutely not, will not happen, not going to do that, no. But then, surprise, surprise, our governor mentioned it in his State of the State. So our AARP Capital Advocacy team kind of looked at each other and said, he's thrown us this bone. Why don't we just catch it and see what we can do? So we just launched into probably one of our most challenging efforts that I've experienced in my 13 years on the AARP advocacy team. We rolled out every possible strategy. We pulled in all the volunteers we could, and we worked closely and very collaboratively with our national office so that we could have state member survey data, so we could go to a legislator and say, well, 97% of our members in West Virginia, when asked, said they would like us to eliminate the tax on Social Security. We maneuvered. I have a favorite word that I use that I don't think it's in the dictionary called strategery. And we used every strategery we could think of, again, working closely with the national office. And one of my fondest moments was sitting in the gallery in the West Virginia Legislature on the very last night of the legislature when that Senate president had to announce that bill had passed. It was great. And so it was very nice to have other people recognize our hard work and to recognize this unique ability that we have with our state office and our national office to work collaboratively and efficiently and strategically to make these things happen.
Nice. Congratulations on the recognition. As we bring closure to this podcast, is there anything else that you would like to share and with staff and volunteers about having strong advocacy teams? You could continue.
I think one thing I would like to share, and Angela has referred to it, is that we understand that everybody has different abilities and different capabilities. So, for instance, the volunteers that Angela referred to, that sorry, my other phone is ringing. But the folks that Angela referred to that are not able to come to our state capitol, but can participate by Zoom in our meetings, and then have become very well known to their legislators by staying home in their district, but watching committee meetings and sending thank you letters and emails with questions to these legislators. Also, being cognizant of the fact that we're very blessed in having volunteers from all across the state who can come in periodically to be a part of our team. It's just made us very effective and is very unique, I think, in the way that we're able to do this.
Nice. Thanks.
I want to add, and this is, a pat on the back for Angela. We didn't really talk about the front end before the legislative session starts, but Angela goes to a lot of trouble to bring us in for some in-person meetings and get us acclimated to start. So we'll have a panel with the news media to kind of give us their impression of what's coming up in the state. We might have a couple key legislators come in and talk to us. We have a person who runs a polling service that knows a lot about how our legislators think. And then we talk a lot about our key issues. So before the session starts, we start to get a feel for what other things are important to the legislators. Also, so that we also understand maybe what the hot button tickets are to them, and to know if that hot button starts and it's not within our wheelhouse, that we need to be prepared to carefully back out of that conversation. Where there's a lot of hot button issues that AARP does not want to be involved in. And to understand that's what we're walking into. Here's what the legislatures really want to push. And so you got to know, and what's the finances this year? All those things, I think Angela and company do a very good job of getting us prepped. So we feel more aware of what we're going into at the session, before we get into it. So we don't go in cold at all. I really like that front end training.
Thank you, Roger. And I would just add that to my fellow colleagues across the country that are advocacy focused within state offices, we cast a wide net. And Roger and Jane have heard my speech over and over again. You either like being at the Capitol or you really don't. There's not much in between. But we encourage everybody to give us a try to come and do the training and see if they think that they may be interested, and come to the Capitol. And a lot of people have come and it's just not for them, and that's okay. But for every 3 volunteers that give us a try, 1 usually sticks around. And so over the years, that has built the team. And like I said, I feel like quality over quantity on a daily basis has more impact and influence. And the Red Shirt Alert Team is a relatively new thing for the state office here in West Virginia. We've grown a really robust group of volunteers that work in our local community of Charleston, West Virginia, which is our state capital. And so it is more convenient for them to come and show up. So as a community outreach component, we've now offered the Red Shirt Alert Team to, hey, what are you doing on Wednesday at 10 o'clock? Please come to the Capitol and wear your red. You'll be there for an hour and a half and you can have lunch after and then you can go home. And so they're willing to do that on our behalf, and it really makes a huge impact. Some years ago, we had a piece of legislation that was really important. It was in the final step of the committee process. And we got everybody to the Capitol, and I encouraged the volunteers to get to the committee room early so that everybody could get a seat. Selfishly, I decided AARP needed to take up one side of the committee room so people wouldn't have any question about where we stood on this issue. And I had a group of volunteers that showed up at 10:30 and brought their newspapers and sat in that room and held the seats. And, some other people were a little frustrated with us that we took up some of the space, but I think that we made our point. And so folks are willing to do that. And I think as a result of that, we're better as a team, we're better as an association, and our ability to have influence and to get things done is certainly extended.
Great, great. Well, I want to thank you, Angela, Jane, and Roger for sharing your story. Staff and volunteers, we encourage you to subscribe to our Roost News podcast channel on the YouTube and or listen to the audio version on your favorite platform. And of course, please invite your colleagues to join us. 2, if you have a story to share, please let us know. On behalf of our Roost News podcast team, we thank you